especially if Shedeur doesn't go in the top 10, Ashton Jeanty, where does he fit in? Because now you're going to have a couple of teams at 4 and 5, the Patriots, the Jaguars, who even if they don't take the running back there, are going to have some teams potentially interested in coming over the top of the Raiders, because we know we've tied Jeanty to the Raiders. So those teams now try to slide back maybe to the back half of the top 10 there.
Just 2 weeks out from the big dance, 2025 NFL Draft, PHNX Cardinals joined our dear friend, NFL Insider of the NFL Insiders podcast. It's Mike Garafolo joining the show like he does during draft season with PHNX Cardinals. Mike, we're fired up. We came off a big Kyler Murray interview yesterday, and now we're ready to get down to brass tacks here with the NFL Draft on deck.
Very excited. You got weeks and months of really. I honestly like this draft season. Felt like for us, kind of popped up a little bit later. Like the buzz didn't start to build until the last couple of weeks. Free agency, start of the league year, trades and all that stuff seemed to occupy most of our time. And it was like, whoa, all right, the draft is almost upon us. So it's really been playing catch up. I got my handy dandy trusty on the floor trying to grab it with my foot. My daughter was in here. The Art Lads guy just came in today. I love these guys. This is a good one. So I got to dig in on this. I'm actually traveling for family reasons next week. So that's right before the draft is not the best time to be doing that, but it gives me more chance basically alone to read to myself. So.
Mike, do you think that the kind of late to the draft party, everybody kind of has that feeling, is just kind of a product of the talent in this draft? You can't just kind of pick it out. You weren't watching people during the college football season like you were last year. You're watching Marvin Harrison Jr. You're watching the quarterback class, where this year it kind of had to materialize here in the pre-draft.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that. You know, there was a quarterback class where we knew 6 were going to go in the first round, didn't know 6 were going to go in the first 12 like it did. But I think that really helped build up the buzz last year, and you don't quite have that this year. And, you know, the Shedeur thing's going to be a draft night drama, I think, playing out, because if he gets past the Giants, it's like, whoa, it's not just slide to 5, 6, 7. It's slide potentially out of the top 10. And then after that, who the heck knows what's going to happen here. So it would then bring back in some of these teams that we're talking about at the top, the Giants, Browns, like, okay, we didn't value him there, but now he's sliding. Now you get a chance to get him. It's not quite Lamar Jackson all the way at 32, but it's going to be an interesting dilemma inside those rooms to say, well, we were toying with the idea of 2 or 3. We got him at 17, 18, 19, maybe even into the 20s. Who knows where that could go? I mean, it could be an Aaron Rodgers-esque slide. It really could. I mean, it's. I know the pro day. See, to me, pro days never help a guy. They only hurt a guy, right? And I don't know that was the best pro day. On the air with NFL Network, our guys were talking about a loose ball for him, you know, which can be considered a problem. Can he drive it through the elements with some of these teams in these places that they play with no domes? You know, it's going to be interesting on draft night.
Cardinals not assuming to look at a quarterback early in this draft. Let's talk about, you broke the news on our show last week, that Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., on top of the Trey McBride news that you broke. I don't want to bury that headline, but you broke the news. Mykal Williams and Jalen Walker and James Pierce all plan to have visits, if not already had top 30 visits with the Cardinals. Yeah. We gave you a list before the show. Any updates to potential heavy hitters the Cardinals are targeting?
We're going to add a new one in there. We're going to add Kenneth Grant, who is being talked of as the second of the Michigan defensive linemen. But our guy Lance Zierlein, when we had him on the Insiders recently, really loved Kenneth Grant and what he's able to bring to the table. Feels like maybe there might be even a higher upside for him than Mason Graham. You know, Mason Graham being talked about as the I want to see where these guys have them. I just got this in now. So now it's like when I start to compare notes to for because I'm not grinding on the tape, obviously, but I'm going about the information. And why am I not finding defensive line edge? I'm in the wrong defensive line tackles here. So they got Mason Graham at a 9.76. They got Kenneth Grant at a 9.47. So with him and Walter Nolan, obviously we heard for months that the defensive line, particularly up the middle, was going to be the strength of the draft. And you're really seeing with some of these guys here. So, Kenneth Grant coming in to visit the Cardinals, being talked about later in the first round, obviously. I have heard a lot of buzz about Graham being a guy that Jacksonville is in love with. there at 5 potentially. So, some of these guys after that going to start to come off the board a little earlier. Going to be interesting to see if he's still there when the Cardinals are picking.
Yeah, very interesting, especially if you consider that maybe Grant hurdles his Michigan teammate Mason Graham. Is that somebody that you're kind of eyeing? Like you talk about Shedeur, like does Mason Graham, is he kind of have some thin ice as far as, where he is at the top of the draft? And if certain teams don't take him, he could slide down considerably?
I don't think so. I really don't. He seems like more of a sure thing, I guess you could say. When I talk about the upside for Grant, Mason Graham is just so solid all the way through that there's just not a lot of holes in his game and not a lot of holes in who he is. And I've nary heard a bad word about him. So I wouldn't say that that's a slide there. To me, the fascinating thing in the top 10, because you start to have these conversations, especially if Shedeur doesn't go in the top 10, Ashton Jeanty, where does he fit in? Because now you're going to have a couple of teams at 4 and 5, the Patriots, the Jaguars, who even if they don't take the running back there, are going to have some teams potentially interested in coming over the top of the Raiders, because we know we've tied Jeanty to the Raiders. So those teams now try to slide back maybe to the back half of the top 10 there. And potentially try to get Jeanty there and some draft capital along the way. So I think there could be some jockeying for position there in the top 10. We shall see.
Mike, we chat a little bit off air. The biggest omission, it feels like, with these top 30 visits, because they're talking to everybody on the defensive front, is Marshall's Mike Green. They weren't at his pro day, or excuse me, Marshall's pro day. And now we've got kind of crickets with that. Like, what's the consensus around the NFL with Mike Green, where you see like Atlanta super tied to him, and a lot of people think outside of Abdul Carter, he's like the best pure edge rusher in the class. Like, what's his floor and ceiling right now, in your opinion?
I wasn't there when he talked at the combine. I heard he just kind of offered it up, the information on him, and nobody really asked him about it. And it was kind of were you guys there for that? I know you guys were in India. I saw you there, but were you there when he talked that day? Was it kind of a weird vibe where he just kind of offered it up?
I think he was just trying to be transparent. Yeah, just putting it all out there.
Must have been on the advice of his agent or whoever to kind of get ahead of it, I guess you could say. But it definitely threw at least the media for a loop there. And I've heard, the talent is there. There's no question that the talent is there. It's going to be a question of the fact-finding mission and what teams feel comfortable with that off the field stuff. As always with this, I've heard a lot of mixed stuff, and it only takes one. So, you paint it as a way of like, some teams are, not in love with what they've heard there, but it takes one to make the move and to say we're comfortable with it. We're going to make the call here.
Along with all the big names that you broke as far as top 30 visits with the Cardinals, you broke one on your own show, The Insiders, shortly after that in an interview you had with Trey Amos of Ole Miss. What can you fill our audience in as far as the caliber of prospect and maybe the fit in Arizona? I
love Trey Amos. He had what did his necklace? He had the chain that said chill, I think, right? It was a snowflake that said chill. And I love that. I said it reminds me of like sauce. It's got the sauce there. And when it comes to a cornerback, I prefer chill. I don't want a guy with a chain as a cornerback that says nervous, skittish. You don't want that as a cornerback. But no, we had a great visit with him. Have heard a lot of really good things about him. That's right. I forgot he was visiting the Cardinals there. He did tell us that. When we've had these guys on, it's like, instead of just reporting it, just give us your list, give us your itinerary. And he threw it out there. So no, I've heard a lot of really good things about Amos. I enjoyed our visit with him. He's I don't know if he's come in yet for the Cardinals yet, or if it's coming up here in the next week or so, but he's an interesting prospect for sure.
This draft is so heavy with defensive line players, but the more and more we hear about it, it's like this top 10 to 12. You mentioned a team could trade up for a Boise State running back, and I love Ashton Jeanty, but that just seems like for teams up there that are trying to rebuild, that need line of scrimmage players, like how wacky could this top 15 get? Could we see a receiver? Could we see tight ends?
Yeah, the Jeanty one is interesting, and I say the teams could trade up. Teams are trying to be coy with him, right? Like, because there's not a lot of work that has to be done there. His character is off the charts. Who he is off the charts. So I think you could wind up seeing. I had somebody say to me that the Dolphins, who could have a need there at the position, depending on how you look at Achane and whether he's the guy long term, their head of personnel lives in Boise, and a lot of the picks that they've made from the west side of the country. I don't know specifically his position, but he's been the driver for those. He's like, keep an eye on the Dolphins. I got nothing other than that, but keep an eye on the Dolphins to potentially come up here. So, yeah, I mean, it could get potentially wacky. I mean, obviously it's always about the quarterbacks, and if Shedeur slides, can some team come in? Yeah. Is it a just throwing this out here, but like the Rams, who have Matthew Stafford, but in the last couple of years here, and you're going to be moving on eventually, and it's like, why not? Like, we get to a certain point, why not take the shot? Even for them, if it would be a trade up scenario for them. I do love that every team has their first round pick right now, which is the first time since the merger. I remember at the trading deadline last year, when we had no trades, I said, wait a minute, nobody's traded their first round pick yet. That is crazy, because you wouldn't see it until the start of the league year. And our research team was going through it, trying to figure out the last time that happened. So kind of wild that all 32 teams are holding their first round picks as we go into the draft.
Yeah, hope springs eternal for all 32 teams in the first round for the first time in a long time. When you talk about the quarterbacks and the Shedeur, it is going to be maybe the topic of the night. If he doesn't go, potentially to the Giants, there's Jalen Milroe. There's that story, Mike, that came out this week that he got the invite to the green room at the draft in Green Bay. Him, Jackson Dart, are those going to be two prospects that teams that you said at the top of the draft are going to maybe want to try to vie to get back into the top 20 to get that fifth-year option and a quarterback on their roster?
Yeah, potentially. With the Milroe thing, by the way, that was not like I said, oh, is that an indication? No, that was just, it was an opportunity presented, and the kid wanted to go to Green Bay. So it's not like a dead giveaway. He knows where he's going. We've seen guys that have had to wait into day 2 and even sometimes into day 3 when they go there and accept that invite for the draft. So, yeah, with Milroe, it's going to have to be somebody who sees, and I hate to keep saying this because it's like, oh, same school, Jalen Hurts, Alabama, but that's the skill set. And it is sort of a copycat type thing. And it's like, well, if we can do what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts, then we can capitalize off of that and play into this guy's skill set. So I think you wind up seeing, and Hurts was a second round pick. So I think that's where you're probably going to see the clock start to tick on a guy like Milroe. But you got Jackson Dart. Quinn Ewers is a guy I think a lot of people are sleeping on when it comes to this draft. And certainly he was highly recruited. He's got all the ability. I know a lot of folks thought this last year he took a step backward and didn't quite capitalize on where he was last year coming into the draft process. But that's the kind of guy that's had great meetings from what I heard and could potentially find himself in a situation like he visited Indianapolis this week, where you've got two quarterbacks duking it out, but you're really not married to either one of them at this point. Could this guy be a guy you bring in and say, hey, we may get a guy later on, even though we're not in position at the top of the draft there to take a guy?
Put you on the spot here, Mike. We talk about Shadour Sanders potentially falling in the weeks ahead of the draft. Is there a player, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in the top 10, that you've heard that the league is high on, that maybe isn't getting as much name recognition? Like I think Matthew Golden right now feels like a name that's rising. He takes a visit with Dallas today, who's got the 12th pick. Is there a player like that you're hearing a lot that could go higher than maybe the casual fan thinks?
Is there a guy that could go higher? Jeez, off the top of my head. Yeah, you did put me on the spot. I think, well, you meant, yeah, I mean, I think Ewers could be in play. Like, that's the guy that I say sleeping on him. I think Dart is being oversold is what I do. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's not somewhere there in the first round. I think everybody's talking about it as a lock that he's in the 20s. We shall see, especially if the Shadour slide happens, because that could then push him back out there. So I'll go Ewers there. And then if I remember anybody before the end of this, I'll bring him back for you.
As far as Shedeur goes, there was conversations on the McAfee show with Schefter, and he mentioned the Cardinals could be a dark horse for Shedeur, which surprised us because we hadn't thought of that at all. And he contextualized it by saying that Michael Bidwell isn't, necessarily content with Kyler at the quarterback position. Another thing that, I didn't necessarily agree with. Is there anything as far as, was it just kind of a shoot in front of him? I don't want to pit you versus anybody else, but just your general thoughts as far as that conversation and maybe the way you view it.
As far as the Cardinals being a possibility there?
Yeah, Cardinals, and then also Kyler versus ownership potentially.
Yeah, I've heard no indication in that regard. I know that they expect great things from Kyler this season. I think they feel like another year with him, understanding what their expectations are, what they want to see from him as far as consistency in this next year 3 under this coaching staff. Right? I got my yes, year 3 under this coaching staff. So I don't see that in that regard. And the fact that they bring in Jacoby Brissett, pretty much, I think, puts to rest the possibility of they could potentially draft a guy. I mean, if you'd be drafting him as your third quarterback, it'd be a weird type situation. Jacoby's a guy that they are comfortable with, that they can slide in there and play if they need him to play a game here or there, a stretch here and there. So I know they feel comfortable in that regard, and they really feel like he's going to help out Kyler Murray, and it'll be a good working relationship there. So
we've got no resolution on Trey Hendrickson, and now you've got TJ Watt posting cryptic Instagram stories. Is this Trey Hendrickson 2.0? What's happening there?
Guys have gotten deals. Max Crosby's gotten a deal. Myles Garrett's got a deal. If the Cleveland Browns can get a deal done with Myles Garrett, given where that situation was, I don't see how the Pittsburgh Steelers can't get a deal done with TJ Watt at this point. And I'm sure it's a little bit of a leverage or a scare tactic or something like that. When you ask about it, nobody's really saying one way or another, which tells me that it's sort of a real thing. So it's part of an ongoing negotiation, and something that not obviously, but something that I could read into this, that TJ Watt feels like should be done by now and is not done by now. But look, I mean, there's no real pressure point for this one. It's not like he's going to be on field doing some stuff here in the next couple of weeks here. So I don't see a world where TJ Watt is not with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That would be incredibly wild to me. We'll see where this one goes.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating story in the way that players can kind of weaponize their social media. But I mean, we've seen it work. I mean, Myles Garrett sitting there signing a new $40 million deal. Yeah. Max Crosby's got a brand new deal. We'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. Really, really fascinating stuff with TJ Watt and all that. Kyler Murray broke some news for us earlier this week, Mike. He gave us another name. Jahad Campbell was one of those players that came in for a top 30.
Nice.
You got him with Jalen Walker, so two versatile linebackers there. Walker's fascinating to me just because he played more snaps off ball than off the edge, but then the league views him as kind of off the ball. Is he one of those guys that can be like his ceiling is top 5 and his floor is where do you get the sense of that?
Well, first of all, here's what I love about Kyler. Kyler, I remember him when Paris Johnson came in for his visit, was like there to greet him and just super ecstatic. And I'm going to be pounding the table for them to draft you guys, which I'm sure didn't hurt. I don't know if it would have changed like which way they were going to wind up going here. But no, I think Walker to me is, back of the top 10, early teens to me. I mean, that's where I've heard he's been projected. Anything below that would be an incredible surprise to me. I know you're talking about his ability to do both. Look, the Eagles just gave Zach Bond a ton of money to play off the ball at linebacker. Teams have done it too as well. So it used to be like, that's not what you're going to value that high in the draft. I mean, I know years ago we did, but that could be something where you're starting to see a little bit of a turn back toward teams that value guys who can play off the ball. And there are teams that do and teams that don't. And I remember, listen, talk about the Eagles. They paid a running back, they paid a linebacker, and now they're like, well, this notion that we wouldn't pay these guys when we wouldn't pay these positions, get out of here. I literally heard from people inside that building saying, oh, can't believe these teams are paying running backs. And who's paying an off-the-ball linebacker that? Like, these are direct quotes that I heard, and then all of a sudden in back-to-back years they did. It's a change in philosophy. It's fine. You could just say, like, oh, I said something before, and now I'm saying something different. But don't act like you never said it. Sorry, that was my rant.
I love it. More of that. We'll get you out of here on this, Mike. We appreciate your time. Like, Browns, Giants, it felt like a landing spot for a quarterback in the top 16 to burn one of those guys, so a player maybe would get pushed down for the Arizona Cardinals. Like, what's happening there? Is the worst kept secret in the NFL that Kirk Cousins is going to go to Cleveland? Could both of those teams then trade up from the second to get a Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe? Like, give me a synopsis on what happened where both of those teams were maybe vying for Shadour Sanders. Now they're pivoting.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I would say that going back to the end of last college season when the Giants were in Colorado meeting with Shadour Sanders and getting a chance to see him, there was definite interest there. If they don't wind up taking him, and I'm not off it yet, but if they don't wind up taking him, I would say that through the process, they probably cooled a little bit. Not probably, definitely cooled a little bit. So, there's how do I phrase this? They do. I'll say this. The Giants, I feel like, do believe Shadour Sanders can handle the New York spotlight. And that's a big thing with them. Who can and who can't handle it. And I know that there were quarterbacks last year that they feel could not handle the New York, J.J. McCarthy for one of them. I can't wait to see, because I'm not giving up on that. I'm not giving up on the chance that the Giants are going to take Shadour Sanders at number 3. I'm not. Yeah, if you ask me right now, will they? I would probably tell you no. I'm not giving up on it right now, though. For drama's sake, if it doesn't happen, it's going to be a really fascinating first round.
It really is going to be. I want to put something on your radar for the next time we meet up. Patrick Peterson, a Cardinals great, put on his Instagram recently that it was nothing like taking flight with the Bird Gang on Sundays. See you next week. I don't know. I think we might have this was yesterday. So I don't know if this is like a one day and then retire scenario or what's in store. But if we ever get any insights, something I think that Cardinals fans would love to hear, but might have a resolution by the time we talk next week.
There you go. I'm on it. See you next week. Did he play last year? Was he on a roster last year? He was not. So that feels like a one-day thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Or maybe their color guy for the radio broadcast just retired. That's something too. He's breaking into broadcasting. So we'll see what's up with P2.
We've had him on the Insiders, and he's been terrific. So whatever he wants to do in the media, he will do well.
This guy's terrific. Mike Garafolo. Make sure you're following on Twitter at Mike Garafolo. You're watching the Insiders. You're watching all his work, NFL Network, NFL Media. Thanks, Mike.
You got it, guys.